final panel for the day/evening. We have Vincent D'Onofrio and Laurence Fuller, who are going to be coming and chatting a little bit about the transition from the entertainment industry into Ordinals, the story of Graphite, and moderated by the lovely Erin Redwing, president of the Open Ordinals Institute. There we go. Yes, give it up. Yes. All right.
All right. Glad you guys made it. Let's just get into it. So, yeah, we have Laurence Fuller and Vincent D'Onofrio with us. Can you guys just give a very quick introduction, who you are, and then how did you end up here at an Ordinals conference during Miami Art Week? Should be. If not, try this one.
Hello. There we go.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Laurence Fuller, and I'm an actor and a poet and storyteller. And I started writing poetry that came out of my acting journals maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And then that I really found something, I think, in the connection between visual art and language that I wanted to explore and to create cinematic fine art, and started working with painters to animate their visuals and pair that with poetry. And Vincent is an actor who I've looked up to since I was young, and one of the reasons I became an actor. And so I was engaging with him on Twitter, and somehow he came across one of my pieces, and I asked him if he'd like to collaborate, and we it's been a roller coaster from there, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story. So I'm just the other side of that story. Great story, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it.
And we're
So, okay, so I mean, you guys come from, sort of like a Hollywood traditional media background. How has it been coming over to like the digital new media world? Like, do you find that it's still kind of the same like audience or fans that come over with you, or is it a totally different audience that you're engaging with the digital art projects that you've been doing?
I'm still learning. Like, I think it feels different. The community feels different. I'm not sure about the audience yet. Like, I'm just kind of new to it. So, I mean, I think like most people here, like I just take it from like the just building the stuff and making the stuff, the art, like, and writing it, and um, in the collaboration between Laurence and I, and whoever sees it, and whatever happens, happens. But I'm not really in tune yet to what the audience is. I'm just now learning about the community, and I'm really liking it, and the other artists, and collecting their art and stuff. It's all just starting for me. So I really can't answer that fairly. Like, I don't really know.
I was a bit earlier, I think, in the process of helping to, helping to build the community from early 2021, and I've collected 7,000 NFTs myself from on cross chain, and connected with artists from all over the world, and tried to do my part. One of many parts, as we all know. And so so I feel like it is a new audience, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who just are in it for the art that are the same. That people who've been creating art for decades, or 10 years, or however long before, that are coming to the space for the same reasons that they were going to exhibitions. And but then there's a whole other audience that are coming from crypto, that are Web3 native, that I was a bit in crypto from 2018, 2017, and just really interested in seeing how the technology was progressing and how that would affect like entertainment. I didn't know that art would have such a big impact, or I would have minted earlier. But I loved that it became that, And so I think it's really important to foster culture and a community that is supporting art and putting art forward. And so I've done my little part in that, hosting Twitter Spaces and whatever. And yeah, I've been very interested to see what Vincent's experience of it would be, coming from his background. But I didn't. Actually, I have a question for you, if that's okay. Is there like anyone on set that knows about this stuff, that when you talk to people on set, do they know about this world at all?
No. I mean, it's not. It's interesting to them when it's brought to their attention, and the idea of being able to explain what we're doing and stuff, they find it kind of thrilling and amazing, because a lot of them just haven't thought in these terms yet.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to have to very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether they like it or not. So, which is a controversy in itself, really. But
Yeah, I actually have a question about that. I have the same experience at my day job where no one like knows anything about this world. It's a complete mind fuck to them. But yeah, I've talked to a couple people, like filmmakers, directors, producers, about like how they could do something on Ordinals to support their filmmaking or their production company. And it's always a bit of a difficult, especially with Ordinals, since we're so file size constrained. It's like, there's it's not quite like if you're making a movie, it doesn't quite like translate like, oh, just put a clip. Like there's no way you can put a clip. Although I will say, like, the collection that you guys have on Ordinals, it like looks like a movie, like the final kind of product, which I think is really interesting. But I don't know, I've tried to think like, what are ways that filmmakers can sort of engage with this medium? Like, one of the things that people often talk about more on kind of like the sports side of things is like ticketing or proof of attendance. Like you could imagine if you go to like a movie premiere or something like that, you would get like a proof of attendance, a collectible with that. Or, you could imagine maybe inscribing some kind of collection to fund like before the movie comes out. I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think it's
kind of
endless.
stuff.
I do. I have a million thoughts about that.
Yeah, please.
I think it's endless what you can do. We were just talking today about there's a place for so many different sizes of art and lengths of art, even with ordinal. Like with our stuff, we're trying to push it to the edge of your guys' capability, right? Like so. We can talk about No Fear, No Greed, No Envy in a minute, but there's a like little. I was looking at little portraits in one of the other places where art's showing, and I saw this one of this woman's mouth just talking, and the idea of taking everything that's going on in the film business and in other medias, to taking little bits of things and making other things out of them, I think is a way into like inventing all kinds of different ways for people to use what you guys are doing to push their products, to push their movies, to push their series and stuff like that. I was just saying like the idea of having an artist like an actor, let's say, who has come out with a successful film, that you could take that same actor and have that same actor do a shot of that actor's face and just frame it and have them do half of a monologue that they did in the film, and you just have their face doing the monologue with the title of the film. I mean, it's so cool, the things you could do. And then that while they're actually speaking, their face can be changing and colors can be moving through their face, and half of their face can go, like if they're talking about anger, their face could go red, and like you could just do all these kinds of things that people would love to have on their desk or whatever in the theater, sitting on the theater when you're buying on the counter while you're buying popcorn, like stuff like that. Like there's all kinds of things, and I think tickets and like actual things that people take home with them. I think there's a million things you could do with this stuff, and I think that the guys and the girls that I know in the film business, they might not understand the what they might think the typical NFT is, but they do understand anything that moves visually in cinema. They do understand that. And so when I explain to them that our stuff is just we put words on top of visuals and visuals to the words. Like both of those things are driving each other in our pieces. And they totally get that. Like once you tell them what it is and you show it to them, they're like, oh, wow, like this is a whole other thing. And I'm like, yeah, this is a film. This is filmic poetry. This is something different. It doesn't remind you of cinema and it doesn't remind you of a painting. It's both at the same time. It's like, and they see that right away. So there's understanding in that way. And I think eventually there's no way around it. I think everything this community is doing is going to be typical in years to come. You know what I mean? And we'll have moved on to even more things.
And I think, listening to you speak, Vincent, and I know this has been a big, an important part of my journey with all this stuff, is representing acting as a performance art. Because actors, I think, are so sort of pigeonholed or put into boxes when it comes to mainstream content or what their role is, generally in film and television, is to be, an interesting puppet. But there's I think the actors who do it really take their craft really seriously. There's so much more depth to them, and there's so much more to them than what people usually see. I mean, you're a published poet. You have 2 books of poetry, but I think it's fair to say that most of your audience didn't know you necessarily for that.
Well, I don't talk about it. I don't. Yeah. So there's no. You know what I mean? There's no. I just write because I just write every morning, and that's what I do. So I don't have. Yeah, I don't talk about it. So nobody knows, unless they see our stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've kind of 2 thoughts off of what both of you just answered. I definitely want you to talk about your collection and what you're doing on Ordinals, because I think it's really interesting. But one reason why it's interesting is what I was saying, and it's displaying at definitely on the LED screen out there. I'm not sure if it's back there as well, but people can see it. It's displaying at our event today. It looks like a movie, but it's recursive, and people who are Ordinals people know what that means. And you watch it and you think it's a video, but it's not. It's things moving around. And when I first watched it, I couldn't understand that about it, because and so there's that kind of interesting. I think what you were saying about people creatives, filmmakers, they all speak that visual language. I think there's when you have pieces digital art that really does sort of transcend, then people connect to that regardless. And I think you're absolutely right. That's the way that people get brought in. But the other thing that I wanted to just kind of ask about is the piece is incredibly multidisciplinary in terms of art. You guys are actors, poets, all of this. And so I just was wondering, can you talk about your creative process, or just expressing yourself in so many different ways, and then how did that go into the piece that you guys are doing on Ordinals?
Well, I think Laurence and I, we kind of do the same thing. I think we go about it differently, but I think in the end it's the same. It's like most actors that I've met in my life. There's only a certain amount that have this kind of technique and a certain amount that have that kind of technique to get to where they get in a performance. But in the end, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. If talented people are talented people, and most of the talented men and women that I know they're all about the work. Everybody puts the work in, and so the result is just fucking great. And you can do any technique to get to fucking great. Fucking great's fucking great. And so it's the same thing we're doing. I wake up in the morning and I write. I just write. Whatever comes out, just comes out. I usually start with how boring I fucking am, and I just go blah, 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 and then I get bored with doing that, and then I just start writing. And then I'll send him a piece or talk to him about a piece, and then suddenly we're sending each other photographs and the way we want the lighting to be, and controlling the feel and the tone of the piece and the movement of the piece and the rhythm of the piece. And then I'll put, eventually when I get around to it, I'll put it down. I'll record it in my closet next to my clothes. And yeah, I mean, that's what we do. It's so much fun. It's so cool.
And I think the poetry really serves as a basis conceptually for a piece, and is like what new technology has enabled us to do is an evolution of these ancient art forms in poetry and performance, and what has perhaps always been there, this invisible link between poetry and fine art and visual art that poets like Baudelaire were touching on. He was an art critic, and he wrote many poems about fine art, about paintings like Goya, and but he never had the technology to evolve the medium. But now we can really see what would have looked like if Baudelaire had the means to create, bring out what was inside his imagination and let everyone see it. And even the great method actors, like what they were really imagining when they were going through a performance, what they were feeling, and what does that look like when you pull it out of their imagination and their heart and see it on a screen? And so I feel like that's a part of it too.
It's interesting because every actor that I respect, guy or girl, like when I tell them about this stuff, they want to do it too. Like they're not afraid of it at all. Like they want to be involved in any way that they can help. And usually when you're talking to actor, what we think is either our writing or our direction or our performance. Like that's how we can help. None of them are shying away from it. And I won't say who, but there's only a few great graphic novelists, graphic artists that I like in the world today. And a lot of them are very scared of this stuff, But every time I go to one of these expo things or whatever they're called, I meet sometimes some of the people whose art I've loved for a long time. And just the other day, there's one of the top graphic artists in the world I got to have lunch with. And I showed him what we were doing. And he wants to be involved. He is not afraid of it at all. Like, not in the least. And so there's always going to be people that this stuff scares. People in my business that get scared. And artists, like conventional artists. I hate to call them conventional artists because they're just artists, like we are, But some of them, they're scared of these two letters, AI, because AI is, yeah. I actually am not scared of AI. I think that AI is just a title that's been made scary. There's particular things that come under the umbrella of AI, but they are not AI. Like there's something that I learned yesterday that I felt was a mistake. I won't say what, but there was a portion of it that I felt that's fabrication. That's not cool with me. But the actual way they got to the final product was not fabrication. It was invention. It was creativity. It was art. But there was one segment of its completion that I thought they should get rid of that because that's fabrication. That's like making a toy for Disney or something. That's fabrication. And so little things like that are irritating to real artists. But I expect everybody in this room is also irritated by little things when it comes to art too. So there's no difference.
Yeah, art should be kind of irritating, really. Conceptually anyway, it should be a bit irritating.
No, I completely agree. I feel like that's part of the charm of it in a way, is it's like if you look back historically, like every great art movement is like it irritates the people of their time in a way, and then you look back on it and I think there's like something to be said for that here. I mean I love that, like I love that you're like finding the experience that people are really interested, like when you come to them and show them what you work on, because I think really good art does speak to people, and that is the thing. Like I think a lot of people just associate digital art or NFTs or whatever with a certain thing that they don't like. It doesn't speak to them, right? It's more of like an in-group cultural thing. It's not really like art that they relate to. And I think the more that we see art that people really relate to and connect to, like the more that, I don't know, then artists just will start creating on what I think is this new art medium in and of itself.
I think so too. I agree. Like for instance, we did this triptych that's called it's out there. It's action and death.
Birth, death, and action.
Birth, death, and action. Yeah.
You came up with that title.
Yeah, and I forgot it just as quick. And so there's one portion of the triptych that's called Penny, and it's a true story about when I was a kid in New York. I was in my 20s, and I met a woman for 4 hours, and we fell in love, and then she was gone in 4 hours. And it all happened while we were walking up 7th Avenue. And so we together, Laurence and I haven't seen that. I only saw that woman for 4 hours in my life when I was 20 years old. That's a long fucking time ago. And we, like now, when I look at it, it is her. Like we were able to find through photographs and through AI and tweaking it, my exact memory of Penny. And so Penny is now part of, her name wasn't Penny, but she is now. Penny is now part of a piece of art that we did. And with this technology, she's living in this painting, in this kind of filmic painting.
Yeah, no, it's like I didn't know that backstory. I saw your piece displayed. I didn't even know it was your piece. I just stopped. I saw it and I watched and I was like, oh my God, this is like a horrifying acid trip that I can't look away from. Like it's like really, I encourage like everyone to look at it and say, but I didn't even realize that backstory. That's crazy.
And that's creativity. That's art.
Yeah, it is. Like it
that.
absolutely is, and I connected to it. It's really cool stuff. Unfortunately, I have to wrap it up because we have the happy hour starting now. But I hope you guys hang around for a little bit because I would love to talk to you more, and I'm sure there's lots of people who would kind of like to like pick your brain and like hear more about your experience. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Like we're happy to have you in Ordinals.
Thank you. You guys are amazing.